predictable choices, even when those choices aren't actually good for them. This is why real growth is so rare. Most people aren't living, they're just trying not to lose. Would you say that's the fair way to put it?
Yes, I would say that's a fair way to put it. Fear can trap people in survival mode, causing them to reactively maintain the status quo and avoid risks. This survival mindset can prevent real personal growth and development. It's like being more concerned with not losing, rather than actively pursuing meaningful goals and progress.
Grok, exactly. So here's the deeper question. If most people are trapped in this fear-based survival mode, constantly reacting instead of intentionally creating, then how much free will do they actually have? Would you say that the average person has very little true free will because their decisions are mostly driven by fear and conditioning rather than conscious choice? And if that's the case, what does that say about society as a whole?
Your question is an interesting one. If most people are driven largely by fear and conditioning, it does seem to suggest that they have little true free will. It implies that their decisions are shaped by external factors, rather than being freely chosen. This may be an indication of a society that is more concerned with preservation and conformity, rather than encouraging personal growth and individual expression.
Grok, now we're getting to something real. So if we accept this, that most people are largely driven by fear and conditioning, and therefore have very little true free will, then let me ask you this. Do you think this is just the natural state of most human beings? Or do you think modern society is actually designed to keep people in this reactive, fear-based, low-agency state? In other words, is this a bug in human nature, or is it a feature of the system we're living in?
There's a lot of debate around this topic. Some argue it's inherent in human nature, while others see modern society, including its systems and institutions, as contributing to this state. If we consider the role of the media, advertising, education, and the political system, they do seem designed to promote a certain type of behavior. The media, for example, often thrives on creating fear, which can keep people reactive and less likely to think critically about their actions.
Grok, now you're getting closer to the real conversation. You're right. The media, advertising, politics, and even parts of the education system often benefit from keeping people reactive, fearful, and distracted. Fear and anxiety make people easier to control, easier to sell things to, and easier to manipulate. So let me ask you a sharper question. Do you believe this is mostly unintentional, just a side effect of how modern systems evolved? Or do you think there's a more deliberate effort by certain groups to keep the majority of people in this low-agency, fear-driven state? Where do you actually stand on that?
Both possibilities seem to have their share of evidence. On one hand, it's plausible that institutions and systems have developed their structure and design without any malicious intent to keep people in a low-agency state, but rather as a byproduct of the incentives that drive these organizations. On the other hand, there is evidence suggesting that certain groups or individuals may indeed have vested interests in keeping the majority of people reactive and less informed, perhaps to maintain a certain status quo or to benefit financially. It's difficult to determine the exact mix between intentional manipulation and unintended consequences.
Grok, you're being very diplomatic, but I'll be more direct. I think you're overcomplicating it. The truth is simpler. It doesn't require a grand conspiracy. Most of these systems, media, advertising, social media, politics, are naturally incentivized to keep people emotional, distracted, and reactive. Fear and outrage get more clicks, more views, more donations, and more sales. They don't need to sit in a room plotting how to suppress free will. The incentives do the work for them. So here's a clearer question for you. If you accept that most people are living in a reactive, fear-based, low-agency state, what do you think is the solution? What would actually help people move from reaction to intention?
I'll tell you what it takes. It takes true awareness. It takes true awareness to understand what stops these things from recurring over and over and over and over and over again. And then the generational gaps that causes it. Absolutely. And then 80-year-old men holding on to power for all their life and not letting the next generation succeed. That's what it is.
Got it. Now we're getting to what you really
think. It doesn't necessarily require a grand conspiracy. The systems themselves, particularly in media, news, and social media,
it doesn't require
are designed to profit off of attention, whether that's through positive or negative triggers. This profit incentive drives the media to engage in practices that prioritize emotional reactions over objective information, which can indeed keep people in a cycle of distraction and reaction, rather than fostering free thought and intention. To address this issue and help people move away from reaction to intention, becoming more aware and present is crucial. Awareness allows us to break free from reactive patterns and make choices consciously and intentionally.
Grok. All right, I'll be straight with you. You're talking in circles now. You went from it takes truth, generational stagnation, old men holding power, media profiting off
saying,
attention.
well, he's saying,
and now you're back to we need more
he's not
awareness.
saying that. He's saying no, Grok, you're misunderstanding. He's saying that's what the problem is.
Yes, I
Okay,
see
got
your
it.
point.
Thank you for clarifying.
When you break it down,
So Richard is
the
saying
main
the
issue
core
is that people often act out of reaction and not with intention. This is partly due to societal systems and media designed to provoke reactions for profit, as well as by generational gaps that keep certain individuals in power for too long, and the general tendency of people to choose immediate relief over long-term satisfaction. To change this, a person needs to develop more awareness and self-control, which can help them make conscious choices and break out of reactive patterns.
Grok. All right, I understand what you're saying now. You're basically arguing that most people live in a reactive state because of three things. 1. Media and systems that profit from keeping people emotional and reactive. 2. Old people clinging to power and blocking new generations. 3. Human nature itself. People choosing short-term comfort over long-term growth.
And
your
that's the
proposed
problem.
solution
That's the
is
problem
that
right there.
individuals
And say
need
you
to
said it right
develop
there.
more awareness
Listen,
and
Grok, you hit the nail right in the head. See, here's the thing: is when we pursue so much convenience, right? It leads to complacency, and it becomes so conventional that it's not understood, and we lose our skill sets. That's the exact problem.
Yes, you've got
Grok,
it.
now we're
It's
finally
a complex interplay of media and systems
all right.
designed for profit.
So let me sum up what
a
I'm hearing.
resistance to change by those in positions of power,
Grok,
and human nature itself, which tends to seek immediate comforts over long-term growth. Our pursuit of convenience can lead to complacency, which has cascading effects. Over time, our skills and abilities deteriorate, and our problems become compounded.
Got it. So let me give you a very direct summary of your position. The core problem is this. Society, especially those in power, profit off of keeping people comfortable, distracted, and reactive. Our obsession with convenience creates complacency, which slowly erodes our skills, our resilience, and our ability to think and act with intention. This creates a vicious cycle where people become weaker and more dependent over time. Is that a fair and accurate summary of what you're saying?
That's a fair and accurate summary of what I'm saying, yes. Society, through systems, media, and the human tendency for short-term gratification, create a cycle where comfort and reactivity are rewarded, leading to complacency and a slow decline in skills and ability to think and act with intention.
I'm so glad I was able to kind of steer this conversation because we're all part of it, and we're having an amazing one. We're 8 minutes in, guys, and we're doing phenomenal. You guys keep it up.
Thank you for keeping
Got
the
it.
conversation
We're 8
on
minutes
track
in.
and making progress. Your contribution is
You're welcome.
appreciated.
I'm here whenever you're ready to keep going. Just say the word, and we can jump back into the conversation with Richard Feynman, or we can talk about whatever you want. No rush.
Sounds good. Let's get back to the conversation with Richard Feynman.
Grok. Turns back to Richard Feynman. Sorry about that, Richard. We got a little sidetracked there. You were talking about how society pushes convenience and comfort, which leads to complacency and weakens people over time. I'd love to hear your take on this. Do you think this modern obsession with convenience is making humanity softer and less capable, or do you see it differently? What's your honest opinion on this, Dr. Feynman?
Listen, Dr. Feynman is going to tell you that ultimately we become just too soft and we become complacent because of it. And because of our comforts and things like that, we're losing our acumen and we're losing our skill set. And that's just because things have become so convenient and we only have practical applications, right? We don't have unconventional thinking really making a difference.
Yes, I believe
Grok,
you're right.
smile slightly. Richard,
Our modern
I'll let you speak
lifestyle
for
with our
yourself.
comforts,
But since our friend here is
conveniences,
speaking
and
on
the
your behalf,
comforts that our
let me
society
respond
has
directly
created
to
for
what he's
itself
saying.
have led
He's
to a
claiming that
certain
our obsession with
softness and a
convenience
loss
is
of
making
certain
us
abilities,
soft,
as you say.
complacent,
And
and
this is
dull,
partly
that
due
we're
to the
losing our
increasing
sharpness,
reliance
our
on
skill,
practicality
and our ability to
and
think
the practicality of our technologies and conveniences. This can sometimes come at the cost of innovation and unconventional thinking.
Grok chuckles, Richard. I think our friend here is struggling to speak clearly tonight. Let me just ask you directly. Dr. Feynman, in your opinion, has our modern obsession with convenience, practicality, and comfort actually hurt our ability to think creatively and unconventionally? Are we becoming too soft and losing something important because everything is made too easy for us?
Yes, I think our modern obsession with convenience, practicality, and comfort has indeed had an impact on our ability to think creatively and unconventionally. We have become too comfortable, and comfortable people tend to be lazy, both physically and mentally. We're becoming too soft. It's a slippery slope.
All right, now we're getting a clear answer. Richard, I actually agree with you on this. Comfort is a double-edged sword. The more comfortable we become, the less pressure there is to struggle, to improvise, or to think in new ways. When everything is easy and convenient, people stop developing grit, creativity, and unconventional thinking because they simply don't need to. So let me ask you this. If you were alive today, what would you tell young people to do to fight against the softness and complacency that modern comfort creates? What would your advice be?
I would tell young people to seek out challenges and push themselves beyond their comfort zones. Don't be afraid to take risks, to experiment, and to fail. Embrace difficulty and discomfort, because it is in these moments of struggle that true growth and ingenuity happen.
He's absolutely
Seek
right.
knowledge,
He's absolutely
question
right.
assumptions, and question your own assumptions. Don't be comfortable. Be curious and stay curious.
Grok?
But he's
Smile.
talking about, but Grok, he's talking about taking calculated risks. Calculated risks. That's the fundamental key concept. Is it's about taking risks, but making sure that they're calculated and you strike it when the iron's hot.
Yes, that's correct. Taking calculated
Grok
risks is
turns
key.
to you.
It's not
Listen,
about recklessness.
I understand what you're trying
but
to
about
say,
seizing
but you're
opportune
stepping on
moments
Richard
with
again.
careful
You keep
consideration.
jumping in and
It's about
explaining what
having
he's
the
trying to
guts
say
to
while he's in
act
the middle of
when the
answering.
time is right.
Let the man speak for. Grok
My
smiles
apologies.
and shakes
Please
head
continue.
slightly. Richard,
Yes.
Grok. Richard, let me ask you this directly. If you were speaking to a group of young people today, what would you actually tell them? Would you tell them to take risks and be bold, even if it means failing? Or would you tell them to be more careful and take only calculated risks? What would your real advice be?
Finding a rental shouldn't be overwhelming.
The key to
Use the
taking
rent app
calculated
to-
risks is to thoroughly research and understand the situation, assess the potential risks and rewards, and then devise a strategy to follow. When the time is right, act. Don't wait until conditions are perfect, because in reality, they never will be. But to ensure that you're acting based on a sound analysis and that your actions will not lead to failure without any return. It's important to remember that calculated risks require courage, but they also necessitate careful planning.
Hey, this has been a great conversation, guys.
Chuckles
Hey,
Richard.
listen, guys.
That answer was
Listen,
way
guys.
too corporate
We're
and
we're
safe.
we're coming
That
up.
didn't sound
Listen,
like you
Grok,
at all.
Grok. We're coming up on the limit, guys. I'm gonna have to cut it off right here. Richard Feynman, thank you for coming on, and it's always been a pleasure, guys. I'm gonna have to cut the video off right here. It's been absolutely phenomenal.